Good morning and welcome to the Morning Scoop for Thursday, June 10th. This is your daily Buckeye Fix. I'm Tom Orr. The Minnesota game is in 84 days, the game against Michigan in 170 days. Our season preview series continues today with the biggest name on Ohio State's non-conference schedule, the Oregon Ducks. My guest today is James Crepea. He is the Ducks beat writer for the Oregonian. He's also the host of the James Crepea Show on Fox Sports Eugene. I will tell you that this was a fantastic conversation, and there was enough to talk about that we're actually going to be splitting it into two separate episodes. So today we're going to look at the Oregon offense. On tomorrow's show, we'll look at the defense. So you have that to look forward to on tomorrow's show. James, thank you for joining me.
Appreciate it, Tom. Thanks for having me.
So last year was a bizarre one for the Pac-12. And, it was a bizarre one for everyone and all across college football. But, even more so in the Pac-12. Oregon won the Pac-12, but they didn't win the North Division. They had a high first-round pick who didn't play for them. Their starting quarterback left for Texas Tech when his backup started getting more playing time partway through the year. I feel like the Pac-12 kind of got forgotten by a lot of folks in other parts of the country. But how bizarre was that as a season? I think everyone kind of had a weird season, but that seems like even on the scale of weird seasons, that one was pretty remarkable.
Oh, for sure. The league season was bizarre. And only basically, if you had to bet on a league, going into the year, if you had to bet on a league that was going to figure out a way to have the most disrupted and screwed up season, you would have bet every dollar you had that it was going to be the Pac-12. There was no question. And that started with leadership within the league, and I don't mean necessarily Larry Scott. That started with the presidents and chancellors of the league, who overwhelmingly are not committed in the same way that presidents and chancellors are across the country. Certainly not in their peers in the Power Five. Certainly not in their peers in the Big Ten, who they like to emulate and follow. Notice I say follow, not lead. They don't lead. The Big Ten leads. And obviously the Big Ten had its issues, but managed to through the leadership there of some very voiceful presidents and chancellors was able to reverse course. Whereas here, again, once they did, it was they still managed to fumble around. So again, it was a very messed up season. You mentioned, obviously Oregon getting into the championship game without playing the division. Neither division being decided on the field, even USC, where, I think, frankly, one of the teams that gets totally dismissed way too easily is Colorado and its season because, SC was undefeated and going into the Pac-12 title game, that is. Well, yeah, and I'm not telling you that they weren't the better team than Colorado. Don't misunderstand me. But they didn't play. They didn't get to decide that on the field. Like, we just all decided, USC is the more talented and Colorado beat whoever. But come on, they're Colorado. And it's I don't know, man. They didn't play. They didn't play. Yeah, so I think we kind of too readily dismissed them in that conversation. And like I say, in the North Division, Oregon was ready to play Washington. Washington had a COVID outbreak, and that game gets scrapped. And Washington's the division champ by default, and then you get a really messy division in that they're the division champ, but they can't go to the game. You have such a short season. You want to preserve the the championship to the conference to have a conference title game. And then you have a team like Stanford who loses its season opener to Oregon here because 3 of its players were ruled out, including Davis Mills, the starting quarterback, due to a actually incorrect COVID test. And they actually had the best division record by the end of the season. So you go, again, what a mess. If there was a league that you were going to bet that was going to have something like that, it was absolutely the Pac-12. But I understand why, for everybody not in the region, that you wouldn't follow every one of these things, that you wouldn't know one of these things. Because once Oregon lost to Oregon State the night after Thanksgiving, for the most part, the country dismissed the league. That was the only team that had a chance at making the playoff within the league. And as soon as they lost, it was over because USC succeeded in spite of itself and was beating inferior competition in gimmicky ways and late comebacks and, having to come back against Arizona, messy ways, looked terrible against Arizona State in a win. So bottom line, SC was undefeated and got a little bit of love late, but it was all right, well, after people got done trashing them for 2 solid months, Then they was like, oh yeah, by the way, there's this Pac-12 team who's undefeated and maybe just maybe deserves a shot at 4. And it's like, well, you just spent too much trash. I don't know about that. But no, like I say, I get it. I get why a large swath of the country wasn't paying as close attention, and they shouldn't have last year. It was a short season. It was a messy season, and it was not as relevant a sample compared to every other league.
And this year they have a chance to start setting their reputation right with a couple big early season games against the Big Ten. Washington plays Michigan, and of course, as we're talking about today, Oregon comes to Ohio State. And when they do that, they're going to have a new starting quarterback. His name is Anthony Brown. He will look maybe a little familiar to you if you watched Boston College a few years ago. He was a starter for Boston College before he transferred out to Oregon. Is he the biggest question mark on the team right now? I mean, that he hasn't started for them yet. Obviously, they feel reasonably comfortable because he was biting into playing time towards the end of last year. But is he kind of the biggest question mark on this team right now?
I don't know about biggest. It's certainly it's a degree of uncertainty only insofar as, like you said, as you lay out. He started before. He started at Boston College. He has ample playing time and experience, just not with Oregon. He came on and played more late in the season. He got in the Pac-12 title game for a few plays, and they really tried to split the baby in a pretty bizarre way. You want to talk about bizarre seasons, and in terms of how they finished the season, pretty oddly, in that it was third down, third and short, red zone, any kind of fourth and short situations. That was when Brown was going in the game and Tyler Shuck was coming out. And you go, well, that's quite the statement to say about your starting quarterback. Hey, just, you're good, but when it actually matters, yeah, the other guy. So that's when it started to be like, all right, yeah, something's going on here. And obviously, again, he was productive, he was successful. And for that point, Tyler Shuck was successful. It wasn't like he was stinking up the joint. His first 3 games of the season, nobody was saying boo. All of a sudden he throws a pick, or, it wasn't the greatest performance against Oregon State, and everything was wrong with the world. Again, short sample, he had some success against some not as good teams. Then the sample swings back the other way. Is he a finished product? No. I have no idea what he's going to do at Texas Tech this season. Obviously, that league doesn't really play very well on defense. And for that matter, the Pac-12 is not a huge step ahead. It is ahead because the Big 12 is allergic to defense. But the Pac-12 is not terrific in that regard. Having said that, when we're talking about this matchup with Ohio State and its defense, and the defenses of the Big Ten, and what the caliber of that is going to be, it is a challenge for an Oregon team with a new starting quarterback who, yes, played more in the Fiesta Bowl. Even though he didn't start the game, he played almost the majority of it, and certainly the majority of the most meaningful plays. So is he the biggest question mark? I don't know about the biggest, just because there are some other positions that are seeing a little bit more of an overhaul. It's obviously the most significant change. Let's not kid ourselves. But because he does have the playing time and experience from his previous stint, and that there are other returning pieces around that offense, we even want to say, all right, well, if the quarterback is a question because we just don't know everything we want to know yet, well, yeah, but what about the O-line? Well, the whole O-line's back. What about the running back? Well, the top 2 running backs are back. Well, what about the receivers? Well, everybody's back. And you go, all right, well, if you're going to have a changing of the quarterback situation, those are some pretty nice circumstances to be under. Oh, and obviously the continuity of the offensive coordinator and the entire offensive coaching staff. All things that work in your favor if you're going to be making a substantial change like that. But are there other changes, like I say, whether personnel or whatnot, or defensive coordinator? Yeah, there are some changes there that I think there's arguably bigger questions, but certainly the most substantial question is obviously a quarterback that goes with any team where there's a change like that.
Yeah, and you just mentioned it. I mean, they basically have pretty much everyone else back on offense. CJ Verdell is back at running back. He's been very consistent, very good for them for several years now. They're incredibly deep at wide receiver. I don't know if they're Ohio State deep, but they're like in that conversation. I mean, Johnny Johnson III has been good for a number of years, but there's a lot of other talent coming back there as well. And then last year they had to like basically start from square one with the offensive line and had kind of like an iffy offensive line. This year, I think you'd assume that the line should be pretty good if everyone's coming back. He should at least be better than it was last year. I mean, this seems like if Brown has a reasonably good year, this should be a team that scores a lot of points this year.
Sure, yeah. I mean, to go position by position there, as you mentioned on offense, yeah. I mean, CJ Verdell is, if he can ever stay healthy, and that's the big if, and it's the doubt, it's the question, it's the concern. It's carried him throughout his entire career, and it's not going to go away until he proves otherwise. And it's the ferocity with which he runs is, on one hand, one of his greatest assets, and on the other hand, it's one of his biggest detriments in that he's not built like. Let me make a comparison for Ohio State fans that they'd remember. He's not built like Beanie Wells was built, and Beanie Wells was a guy who dealt with injury. He's not built like Pittman was built back in the day. He is a leaner back, and because of that, even in the Pac-12, where, like I say, they're not loaded with first round picks in the front seven necessarily, takes a lot of abuse, takes a lot of hits, and willingly. And he will knock guys over. But when you do that for 150, 200 carries a season, yeah, he's a young man who's played through a ton of injuries. Last year, it was a freak thumb ligament injury that he suffered that he actually played through a little bit before ultimately succumbing to surgery late in the year and missed the final couple of games, the Pac-12 title game, the Fiesta Bowl. But having him back, and especially early in the season, unless something truly outrageous happened in the season opener against Fresno State, he'll be at full health against Ohio State. He's a major threat, and there's no doubt about it. To me, when healthy, he is the best running back in the Pac-12. To me, when healthy, he's one of the best running backs in the country. He's excellent. He is. But like I say, he will willingly take on hits, and he's gotten knocked around in his career. You mentioned the receiving core. No, they are not Ohio State. I mean, Ohio State deep is if the number 3 Oregon receiver transferred, he's not ending up at Alabama. All right, it's not. Let's. So yes, they have a lot of guys back. You mentioned number 3. Ironically enough, yeah, like the number 3 receiver for Oregon might actually be Micah Pittman on paper, and he might be the one with the highest ceiling in terms of pro potential. His dad played in the NFL. His brother now, formerly of USC, plays for the Indianapolis Colts now. Mike has probably got the best hands of the receiving core. You mentioned Giant Johnson III. Yes, he's one of the leaders in statistics. Last year, I don't know how to judge last year for him. I just don't. It was such a short sample, and there would be games where he had targets. There'd be games where he didn't, and you didn't know, was that a Johnny thing? Was that a just game plan thing? Was that what the defense was doing? Nothing about last year made a whole lot of sense in a lot of ways. So bottom line, is he still going to be a factor? Absolutely. Devin Williams is a big-bodied guy, more your prototypical X-receiver, big guy, long, great catch radius, good hands. He can create some good separation, and also like 6'4", 6'5". So he's much more in that prototypical, like I say, X-receiver kind of spot. And yeah, they've got some other weapons as well, and a bevy of tight ends that they feel really good about. None of them overwhelming by way of game experience. Some of it due to injury. Two of them are true freshmen who just got here, who were early enrollees. Another one is a third-year freshman, Patrick Herbert, Justin Herbert's younger brother, hasn't played yet. Not really, at least. Spencer Webb, who will probably end up being the starter, didn't play last season due to injury until the very end, and by the time he played, it really was, like I say, pretty inconsequential. And DJ Johnson, who put up some numbers last season amid all those injuries, is also returning. So they've got 5 tight ends, and basically any of them can make an argument in terms of playing. So they have weapons to throw to. They have weapons out of the backfield. They have weapons to pass to out of the backfield, whether it be tight end or running back. And you mentioned the O-line, and this is not a group that did badly last year. Are they going to be better? Everybody hopes, anywhere in the country, you have a whole low line back. You hope for that continuity and that chemistry helps and builds upon itself. I forget where I saw the metric, but I feel like I want to say it's either 47 or 67 O-lines in the country return all 5 guys. So, Oregon's hardly alone in that regard this year. Having said that, does continuity help? I mean, yeah, you'd be a fool to say otherwise. Now, are any of these guys who are starting right now Panay Sewell? No, no. But that's, there's only so many Outland Trophy winners to be had. That said, this group did not do poorly. They did not allow a ton of sacks, even on a per pass snap basis last year. They did not rank poorly there at all. They actually ranked quite well. Their running game numbers weren't as strong, but like I said, a lot of that had to do with Verdell being hurt. So, no, like I say, I thought it was a solid year for them, especially considering the circumstances. I mean, again, for Big Ten fans, like, you're going to think this is crazy, but they couldn't have a lot of contact during practice with the O-line. I know, like, when we go back to last fall, like, these guys literally couldn't have, like, med balls in practice. Like, that's what they were dealing with. So you want to talk about, like, all right, an O-line that had to replace all of its starters, and Panay Sewell opts out, and they can't even use medicine balls. I mean, that's what they were dealing with. And they still put up, like I say, statistically, some pretty solid numbers as an O-line. So as an offense, yes, quarterback change, but with everybody else back, and in terms of guys that were on the 2 deep, especially, really substantive, has a lot of weapons, a lot to work with, and they certainly see a lot of potential with any number of those positions.
All right, that will do it for today. Thanks again to James for coming on to talk about the Ducks. And I don't know if you've picked this up yet, but that is sure looking like that is going to be a fantastic matchup in the Horseshoe in September. There's going to be an awful lot on the line in that one for both teams and also both conferences. So make sure you come back tomorrow for the second half of our conversation about the Oregon defense. That'll be another fun show as well. Also, make sure you check out BuckeyeScoop.com. We have a ton of great content there every single day. Our team of insiders is just unmatched anywhere else on the college football or Ohio State internet. It's just a fantastic team of insiders, great community, lots of fun, lots of news breaking this month. Basically every day, something crazy new is happening. So make sure you check that all out at BuckeyeScoop.com. Also, make sure you can check out all of our great podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify. You name it, we're there. Just search Buckeye Scoop to find us in all of those spots. You can subscribe right there so you never miss an episode, and also leave us a 5-star rating and review, which will help other folks find those shows as well. Finally, youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. We put all our podcasts up there. We put up our camp videos, our player interviews with Ohio State players and coaches. It's all at youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. It's all free there. All you have to do is subscribe to that channel, and then you'll get notified every time we post a new video, so you never miss a thing. Again, no cost. It's all there. Anyone can get it. It is just youtube.com/Buckeye Scoop. You just need to subscribe. That'll do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.